I'm Erica Lukes, host of UFO Classified. For me, life isn't simply black and white. Life is full of many unknowns. It is my goal to travel the world and to work with the world's leading experts in the hopes of making groundbreaking discoveries. Join me on UFO Classified Friday nights at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, only on KCOR.
And then down the river.
UFO Classified. UFO Classified. No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
What is going on at Skinwalker Ranch and in the Uinta Basin? As most of you who follow my show know, over the past few months, I have conducted some groundbreaking interviews and interviews that I have no doubt will be remembered for time and eternity. They are of a great magnitude. I became acquainted with, thanks to Ryan Skinner, a fellow by the name of Chris Marks, who, as most of my listeners know, I ended up falling in love with and marrying. But it was very interesting because he worked for Bass, he worked for Bigelow, and was there from 2010 to 2019. And he was very upset by a story that he saw on a little news feed on his YouTube. It was a trailer for Hunt for the Skinwalker. And he was not happy with the way the ranch was being portrayed. He had lived there. He and his partner, colleague Chris Bartell, who also worked for Bass, spent more time there logging every nook and cranny than anybody probably has. And it was remarkable. The experiences they had, the beauty they felt the land possessed. It was really wonderful. But as documents started getting released, as things made their way to the surface, as more questions were being asked specifically towards Bigelow and Knapp and Kelleher in that direction, the more they began questioning what was taking place at the ranch. Was this truly paranormal, or was this, in fact, non-lethal weapons testing? And what better place to do it than in a rural place that is adjacent to federal land, where we know we can get away with lots of things in that area. It is interesting because I've also been conducting interviews last week with Michelle Sanborn, whose father was Charles Wynn, who lived next to the ranch and had his first experience after living there for 30 years in 1997, where he was hit by a blinding light and subsequently had health concerns and died of cancer. And so there are some very big questions here. What is going on? What has this community been through? Have they been manipulated? My thought is yes. Yesterday, thanks to Keith Basterfield, an Australian researcher who's been on my show and has also written several blogs that are the most important with regard to Skinwalker Ranch that you will ever read, and I encourage you to read them. He broke a story where he was working with what Chris Bartell and Chris Marks had said, and also got a statement from Kit Green. And this is so important that I want to just read this. It won't take too long. This article is entitled ASWAP and Skinwalker Ranch. Kit Green makes a statement. Keith writes, in a previous post, I brought together a number of pieces of information concerning the ASWAP ATIP Bass requested MRI brain scans, work by Dr. Kit Green and former Skinwalker Ranch Bass employees. In this post, I wish to go into more detail about what former Bass employees Chris Marks and Chris Bartell hypothesize may have occurred at the ranch. I do this to promote further discussion and debate on the topic based on the statements which have been publicly made by Marks and Bartell and not on second-hand or third-hand hearsay. Ever since the New York Times story broke in December of 2017 of a $22 million secret U.S. Department of Defense study named Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, there have been claims that some of the money was spent studying Skinwalker Ranch. For example, documentary filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, who produced a recent documentary on the ranch, appeared on the internet radio show Phenomenon Radio, hosted by Linda Moten Howe and John Burroughs. In the episode that aired September 27, 2018, in part, Corbell stated, The New York Times absolutely got it wrong with their announcement in the December of the 2017. It may not be their fault, but I want to clarify that the primary reason for the $22 million allocated to what we have been told was to ATIP, which is not correct. The $22 million was allocated because of and primarily for the study of Skinwalker Ranch by the Defense Intelligence Agency under the Defense Warning Office in the name of ASWAP. So here's what Keith writes. How do we know the DIA was even interested in Skinwalker Ranch? In the New York Times article, 16th of December, it reads, in 2007, Mr. Reed said in an interview, Mr. Bigelow told him that an official with the Defense Intelligence Agency had approached him wanting to visit Bigelow's ranch in Utah where he conducted research. Number 2, the New York Magazine on March 19, 2018, cited Harry Reid as being approached by Robert Bigelow, saying that he'd received a letter from the Federal National Security Agency employee who wanted to visit Bigelow's ranch. Number 3, Chris J. Marks, in an interview to episode 46 on the Black Vault Internet Radio show, stated that while at the ranch he was aware that the studies there were sponsored by the U.S. government and that one copy of the daily report went to the Pentagon. It was only in late 2019 that Marks became aware of the DIA's Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program, and therefore the ranch sponsor was the DIA. Number 4, during a late 2019 conversation with a former BASS employee, a physicist, Mark states that the physicist was aware that a senior DIA employee, one James Lataski, was observed to actually visit the ranch. This was believed to be in 2007 or 2008. The 2008 DIA ASWAP solicitation paperwork located on the author by this author on the internet shows the DIA ASWAP manager was one James T. Latatsky. In short, it can be demonstrated that at least one senior individual in the DIA was interested in the ranch. So there are other things, and I won't read those, but I want to get to, because I would like to get to our guests, but there are things that I'm going to skip to, and you can read Keith's blogspot. I will be posting this. We know that Chris Marks and Chris Bartell were sent to a Reno clinic, a very interesting Reno clinic, to have their MRI studies, and Keith Basterfield reached out to Kit Green, which is very wonderful. I'm going to read this. Dr. Kit Green and his study. So this is a different part of the report. While the following is not directly attributed to the study of the security guards at Skinwalker Ranch, it does appear relevant to me in this article. In interviews with Annie Jacobson 2018 and MJ Benias 2019, Dr. Christopher Kit Green has outlined some details of the studies of the medical effects on humans due to close encounters with the phenomena. Of interest here is a quote from page 398 of Jacobson's book. His original hypothesis was that the majority of his patients had been exposed to technology from black programs. He says that is advanced state-of-the-art, high-energy technologies developed in special access programs, non-lethal weapons programs, holograms, cloaking devices, drones. 25% of my patients die within 5 to 7 years of my diagnosis, and I have no idea of how many other programs I knew about years ago that can do these things, Green says. Basterfield posed a series of questions to Kit Green, and number 1 is, given the information contained in this article, do you have any comment about Marks and Bartell and their hypothesis that the underlying reason for the BASS studies at the ranch included a study of the medical effects on security guards by the phenomena? If so, what is your comment? His comment was, your article and comments by Mr. Marks and Mr. Bartell are a really very nice summary. I have no additional comments because I have no important disagreements with what you and they had said. Isn't that curious? The question number 2, have you any comment on the Marks-Bartell hypothesis that they were perhaps exposed to some kind of non-lethal weapons testing? If so, what is your comment? The reference to the fatality rate does not include any persons from the ranch, but is a different and primary military population. The earlier group has been somewhat discussed in the book, as you mentioned. I have no further insight. I am attempting to write a clinical case study of several of the more interesting cases that touch on the issues of non-lethal weapons. I am baffled. I am certain that no injuries I have encountered in referred cases, or others for that matter, require paranormal or off-world technologies that have caused harm to them. So, were he was asked if there were any additional comments, and he said, "I'm at the conclusion that I've reached slowly over the past 10 years, but it is data-driven. Many of my colleagues I respect disagree, but no physicians disagree, which is sadly a defeat for me. A forensic physician must seek to discern perpetrators and criminal motive, as well as an unknown morbidity and mortality and etiology of illness and injury. I have no clue as to the perpetrators and motives, but I don't require magic and aliens to characterize the injuries and pathologies." So this is a very critical article, and this very blatantly lays it out for you. There was, in fact, at least according to some of the information that is coming forward, that there is a great percentage likelihood that non-lethal weapons were being tested in and around the ranch. We have multiple statements by Bigelow's camp, Knapp and co., that this was happening, that toys were being tested in and along the ranch. And what I would like to just throw out there before we get to my interview tonight is, if that group knew that toys were being deployed in and around the ranch, didn't they have a moral and ethical responsibility to protect the people that were on the ranch, the military veterans that served our country so bravely? Didn't they have an obligation to protect the citizens that were trying to live their lives, that lived next to the ranch? I think that there's some very serious implications with this, and I believe that at some point in time this will all hit the fan. And I've said on my shows before, at the end of the day, when these people look in the mirror, I hope they can sleep at night. I highly doubt they can, because this is absolutely despicable. So on that note, this is a little longer monologue than usual. As you know, I'm very passionate about this, but I now want to very graciously say I'm excited to have my guest this evening, because he has been out here investigating, and he has some interesting insight as well. We're all in this together. We're trying to find information out, and it's never a dull moment. I'm here tonight with James Keenan, who grew up in the West Coast and the Southwest. He was born in LA, went to high school in El Paso, got his bachelor's from the University of California, Santa Barbara. He's had several careers. That sounds familiar, just like myself, including law enforcement, private investigations. He was an elementary school teacher. He's been writing for 3 years and has published several fictional books, Dark Shadows and Catastrophe, its sequel, Blue Blood on the Border, also Shoplifting in a Paranormal Zone, and the UFO and an Alien. He's been on many different podcasts and is quite the rage right now. He currently lives in Phoenix with his wife and son. In addition to writing, he devotes a good portion of the year to researching and locating strange historic anomalies throughout the world. What a cool job. James, welcome for the show. And I apologize for the long monologue there, but this is some pretty groundbreaking stuff that's taking place.
Oh, thanks for having me. And absolutely, it's it's fitting several pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's just been, you've been watching all of this unfold, and it's who knows at the end of the day, what is really taking place. I mean, I think we're having some good idea what was taking place at the ranch and in the Uinta Basin, but to me, it's such a disservice to that community to go in and create a narrative and build upon, oral traditions and different things, and build on the work of Junior Hicks and Frank Salisbury, who have investigated anomalies in the area. What are your thoughts when you're watching all of this?
The Uinta Basin it's just one of those few places in the world that so many different things come together. You have other places like Sedona, where you have ancient Native American oral tradition and stories. You have this rich past with paranormal, and then you have so many anomalies on the Uinta Basin mixed in with interesting type of mining that goes on, and with gas and natural gas and all these large corporations in the location, and so many medical issues with people. And then you throw in what happens and what you hear about at Skinwalker Ranch and in the neighboring properties. And then suddenly in the last 2 years, suddenly you hear about You know, the federal government was absolutely involved with something, and slowly, you know, you're getting your disinformation being thrown out there. You're getting the true information, you know, slowly cracking and coming up to the surface. And it's just amazing. You know, when I initially got into this, I was, you know, tracking petroglyphs and pictographs for, you know, anomalous events and catastrophic events. And then just happened to come upon the fact that these were within several miles of Skinwalker Ranch. And it's just incredible now to see that there may be natural phenomenon, paranormal phenomenon, and now for the government to also possibly be mimicking things and using it as cover at the same time is just, it's mind-boggling.
It is. It's been, you know, it's so Skinwalker Ranch and all of this. It's always been such a fascinating thing for me. I mean, I've been looking into it and researching it for, you know, a decade, and I've been fortunate that I probably now have one of the biggest archives of Skinwalker Ranch reports and research in the world. And it is really interesting to see all of this and to interview people and to watch kind of the narrative change. And it's sad in a way because this is such a beautiful area. And everyone that lives there, I have so many friends in that community, and they're good people, and they deserve the truth and not to be manipulated.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's interesting because probably since about September, October of last year, you know, when I'm there on the base and I'm tracking several events that are taking place. I'm most interested in electromagnetic anomalies, and I use an earth magnetometer for taking that. And to hear, you know, the stories, to interview people. And I'm a firm believer in Native American folklore. I think, you know, since I got my degree in interdisciplinary studies with anthropology and archaeology, I'm a major believer that the historical data coming from Native Americans, you know, whether it be out of Mesoamerica or the Southwest here in the United States, there's so much to it. And in that location, we have multiple events and multiple things, and now we've just had to add a whole nother column in regards to, you know, it's coming out to where people were being used like guinea pigs without their knowledge. And I talked to you over the last couple of weeks. I happened to be in Reno, and I was looking into something in that regards. And again, it was just a weird dead end that we came across.
Well, and I would love, I mean, if you wouldn't mind sharing what you had found out. I know I'll just tell our listeners, I'd mentioned on two shows ago when Chris Marks was here, I'd mentioned that they had requested their MRIs from the Reno Diagnostic Center, and the cover letter that they received was very odd indeed. And it mentioned a Dr. Ronald Smith, who actually worked with Dr. Kit Green doing military research, and also it said there that this was pre-employment screening for Bartell and Marks, but they had been employed by Bigelow for a year. So there were some very interesting questions that popped up, and you were kind enough to actually take some time to go out there and try to get some answers. And what happened? Absolutely.
Well, the first thing I know you and I discussed was the fact that, you know, part of his training happened in Juarez, Mexico. And, you know, gosh, I happened to grow up in Juarez and El Paso. And the location he was at was, how do you put it? It's a sketchy place. You can get away with doing things that absolutely would not happen, or at least we thought that would not happen here in the United States. So immediately, you know, I let you know that his background is already, you know, muddied. And, you know, then we looked and we saw all this stuff that this Dr. Smith had been into with the government. And I happened to be in Reno. So I went to the building where his office was located, and it was nothing what I expected. It was almost like it was up on the top floor. It was dark. It was depressing. It was old, moldy smelling. And I went to his door. I wanted to go in and I wanted to see if I could ask him several questions. And the door was locked. And this was at 9 a.m. I knocked several times, waited around for 10, 15 minutes, still nothing, kept knocking. Matter of fact, I knocked for about 5 minutes straight just to see if I could get anybody's attention. And eventually I ended up going next door and talking to another office. And it was interesting that the individual I spoke to, she goes, it is kind of weird because I've never actually seen anybody go in or out of that door. And, I may have just caught them at a day they were closed, or he could have been doing rounds at a hospital. But I went downstairs, waited around a little bit. Then I decided to come back at 1 o'clock, about 4 hours later, and still the exact same thing. I met with no contact. Door was closed. Nobody ever answered.
And you're right. I mean, that just seems very strange for a reputable diagnostic center. And when you look on their website, it looks, pretty spit and polished and different things. But then when you try to do some background into some of the people on the website, listed on the website, it takes you to a couple dead ends. So I am very grateful that you actually took the time out to do that. It just deepens the mystery, doesn't it?
Sure. And you know what? During those 4 hours, I should have gone to the actual diagnostic center and seen, what I could get from there. But I was hoping to maybe get in contact with Dr. Smith, just due to the fact that when I came across what you had put out and I looked through that background, it was just immediately a red flag in regards to why would this individual, he's been to these amazing schools, practiced medicine at, such reputable places, suddenly go to Juarez, Mexico for something.
Right. That is interesting. And maybe next time I get down to the Vegas area, I'll have to go to the diagnostic center. And I definitely need to call them, or Chris needs to call them and try to get to the bottom of some of the wording on what he was sent, which I will just say we've got to get ready to go to break. But it was interesting because when I started coming out with this story, Chris Marks and Bartell were both under a little bit of attack from Dr. Eric Davis, who worked with Bigelow, and their credibility was questioned by him. And at that specific point, he mentions in one of my threads that this was typically, the MRI was actually just pre-employment screening. But first of all, who does an MRI for any sort of pre-employment screening? And secondly, pre-employment means before you're hired. You certainly haven't been, on the job for a year. So many questions. I'm here with James Keenan. We've got a lot more to talk about. Stick around. We will be back.
Stand by. This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes. The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified with Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you about UFOCon 2020 in San Francisco, February 20th through 23rd. A conference like no other, UFOCon is where experiencers are going to reveal new information and science and consciousness will collide. So get your tickets at UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com. Don't miss what will be the most talked about conference of the decade.
They say that the truth is stranger than fiction. What if they are one and the same?
It's a life form, unlike anything we know, not cellular but electrical in nature, extremely intelligent.
Join Dave Emmons, host of The Strange Truth, every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, as he connects the dots that others miss. The Strange Truth is a groundbreaking 2-hour talk show that interviews the hottest UFO experts, experiencers, whistleblowers, and spiritual masters from around the world.
A tool for people to connect with the universe and begin to understand it.
The Strange Truth. It digs deep into current events, the extraterrestrial contact phenomenon, explores suppressed history, and dissects false flag conspiracy, all while expanding your spiritual ascendance.
What was that name again?
The Strange Truth, hosted by Dave Emmons, live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Come get tomorrow's news today.
Now, broadcasting in digital HD radio.
Here's what happened on the last episode of Three Guys, No Ties.
Hi, this is Dave Dalton.
And I'm Dave Garrity here on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
And next Thursday, the 6th, well, maybe this week.
February 6th.
If we're into next week already. I mean,
right.
This week on the
We don't
6th.
even know what day it is right now.
It's what it is. Anyways, we do know the 6th is the day you're going to want to join us. We're going to be over with Zamora the Torture King. And since he's here in the studio with us right now, tell us where we're going to be, at what time, and what is going on, Zamora.
You can see Zamora's Vegas Sideshow at the Royal Resort Hotel on 99 Convention Center Drive at 9 p.m. Doors open at 8:30. At 9 p.m. See Zamora's Vegas Sideshow at the Royal Resort Hotel, 2nd floor.
Don't forget to join us February 6th, Thursday night. You will get in for free if you mention Three Guys, No Ties or the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Three Guys, No Ties. Wednesday nights, 7 to 9 Pacific on the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Are you ready to go?
It's showtime!
Here we go, world. You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Your base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to
UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to UFO Classified. I want to just give a shout out to everybody that gets into chat, people that are listening from all over the world. I really appreciate you. You're the reason I am here, and this is a labor of love for all of us. I want to also just give a huge thanks to Robert Fleischer, who is over in Germany, and he did a 4-hour interview with Chris Marks that is now making the rounds in Germany, and this has hit Europe and will get bigger and bigger. This is a huge story, and all of you that join me were here at the ground level watching it unfold, and we'll see where it goes from here. I have no doubt it will get more intriguing as the days pass. I am here tonight with somebody that is very has as many questions as I do. I think that he's studying all of these great things, petroglyphs, and traveling around and meeting people, talking to witnesses, and he's also kind of going through the same process I am as a researcher. It's like you get into this for one reason, and then you find all of these other twists and turns that you have to go through in your learning process. It's a trip. And so I'm here with James Keenan, who is an author. He wrote The UFO and the Alien in 2019, Shoplifting in a Paranormal Zone. You can get those books at Amazon. And so, James, thank you so much for being here. And again, thank you for taking the time to go try to track down Dr. Smith. And you mentioned that was a very interesting experience. And And when we were talking off the air, you were mentioning an article that MJ Banias wrote that just came out yesterday in Vice magazine, where he had interviewed the current ownership and people at the ranch, and they were talking about events that are taking place now that they're actually monitoring with a lot of equipment problems because of strange electromagnetic interference. And there was also Tom Winterton, who was hospitalized with a life-threatening fluid collection, swelling of the brain, where his between the skull and the scalp. And I heard this story firsthand from him, and it was very incredible, very trying for him and his family and things. And I mean, what are your thoughts on this and what's happening with Tom and currently?
Sure. So, a big part of everything, and from what I see in the petroglyphs, this has been happening for a very long time in the Uinta Basin, specifically within an area, and I'm going to triangulate it between where I can see it's taken place in the historical data, which is between Dinosaur National Monument, McConkey Ranch, and 9 Mile Canyon. So what's super interesting about that is when you're going from 9 Mile Canyon to McConkey, this line, this triangle is going directly through Skinwalker Ranch, directly through the Northern Ute Reservation, specifically an area where I believe may be a focal point for this energy, for this power source, that for things that are taking place. And in that article, they discussed electromagnetic anomalies, electromagnetic frequency anomalies taking place. And what people haven't really dug into is what the basin is made of. There's just some interesting things going on underground. You're talking about high concentrates of, oil, concentrates of natural gas. You have this product that's not found anywhere in the world other than there called gilsonite, which is like the most amazing pitch or asphalt that you can find. And it's an incredible natural insulator. And then you look at things that have been put out like the aeromagnetic map by the USGS, and you have these outer areas of low reluctance, and that's meaning that the areas have these like easily magnetized material like soft iron. And then as you come inward, you're getting this positive resistance, you're getting a magnetic flux that's like forming a closed loop. And this reluctance is concentrated, and then the concentration of flux in the low resistance material is moving inward, and it's an attractive force. And guess what's directly in the center? You're talking about the Fort Duchesne. You're talking about Skinwalker Ranch. And in this article, they talked about issues that they're having where it wipes out the equipment, or suddenly they're picking up high frequency or high NT or high millitesla, high gamma radiation, and it knocks out the equipment. And then these injuries have taken place, and some of them are pretty debilitating. Well, what we should be worrying about, and what my work is looking at, with an earth magnetometer is tracking all these electromagnetic disturbances in the ground. But we should be worrying about the EMF frequencies or its corresponding wavelengths, the field of different frequencies interacting with the body in different ways. And the higher frequency, the shorter the wavelength, and we're getting this quanta of like a higher frequency and a shorter wavelength. And as it continues upward in frequency, we're getting this energy per quantum that they have. That's this sudden ability. The radiation is so powerful that it's capable of breaking molecular bonds. And at this level, we're talking about ionized radiation like gamma rays. And I can't remember who said it, but they said that when they had their eyes closed, they were capable of still seeing their bones. Well, that's something you absolutely don't want to happen because that's ionized radiation. I mean, it's gamma rays traveling through you. And at that level, with that amount of energy per quantum, I mean, who knows what's going to happen to that individual in 4 to 10 years.
Yeah, and that was my husband that had that happen to him, and so that's it's again, these are this has been I can't stress how really traumatic this has been to watch somebody I love have to go through this process to not know what happened, and whether it's UAP or UFOs, they were still unwilling participants in something, and they've been given absolutely no tools or no support by Bigelow and his team. And it is, we will, I just want to say, we'll get to the bottom of this and expose those who did that to him. So, and it is sad because what else has happened to the people in and around the ranch, and that's the thing. And I want to ask you too, because I don't know any other place on the planet that has this happen. I can't think of another place where you've got UFO sightings, strange creatures, all of the things that reportedly happen in the Uinta Basin that are actually harming people in any other location.
Yeah, it's people talk about Sedona, but I've been to Sedona several times, and the feel that you get is nothing like what you get when you're on the Uinta Basin. And the data points that I capture, I mean, I'm here in Arizona, so I'm out at a lot of these locations where it's, in the historical data, going back to Hohokam, or the Fremont up in Uinta Basin. And we're talking 1,000, 2,000 years back. And it's nothing like what I've experienced from a collection of data points, from the petroglyphs. It's just crazy because, like I said, I personally believe from what I've seen that there are multiple issues, multiple happenings taking place at the same time. And unfortunately, now we've added this other man-made issue that has complicated, the other factors, the paranormal portion of it, because what better way to hide and conceal something than to mimic what's taking place and what has taken place for a very long time and is embedded in the culture within the Ute Nation that's there and past with the Paiute and with the Navajo.
And you just made every hair on my body stand up. And that is, you said that so eloquently. That is absolutely the truth. And it is so sad to me when you look at some of the military installations or testing facilities, and you look at the locations compared to some of the Native American reservations and things. It is quite curious. It does leave one with lots of questions about that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really neat. And in my most recent lecture, which is the Uinta Basin Portals and Skinwalker Ranch, that's the title of it. I was initially looking into certain anomalies that happened, and George Knapp, I believe, had stated that, and this is an example, that on, I believe it was the Garcia Ranch, that their cattle were dying by falling to their death, and nobody knew how. Well, if you look at a specific petroglyph, very close to that area, as a matter of fact, it's probably not more than 15 to 20 miles away. You have this, what looks to be a portal opening. And then there's another portal opening down from this initial portal. And what goes in one way came out upside down and up in the air. And you see these same anthropomorphic figures and animals falling upside down. And that's exactly what Knapp was trying to explain that nobody could figure out. Well, maybe they're just looking in the wrong places. And it's just intense that there's all of these incredible glyphs. And we're talking about technology being shown from 800 to 2,000 years ago. And now we're just recently coming upon this technology or understanding the technology. And there is a good possibility that the government may be fully aware of this and be mimicking what they know, what they possibly could have found. And I've told a few people this. When you talk about shape-shifting and you talk about cloaking technique, if this technology or this has been going on for a long time, what is the possibility of it having been lost or found by the Navajo or by the Native Americans and not fully understanding the technology or the capability that they had? And then at a later date, which is current time, this was rediscovered by an entity, by the government. And as we've, I think you said that it was Jeremy Corbell that had inside information in regards to what special forces units were doing on the basin, and that this may be based upon them testing cloaking, capabilities or the ability. And I'm not talking about people actually shape-shifting, but what if it gives the illusion or causes you to see something of that nature take place?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. And it's been amazing because we've received a flood of information, really, some that we need to weed through. I mean, obviously we have to do our due diligence, but you're talking about some of these technologies that we have that have been tested and put out there and in theater and different things. And this cloaking technology, interestingly enough, was mentioned by To the Stars Academy. And we know that, TTSA has ties. Obviously, Colm Kelleher is there and different things. And so what were these people, were they researching cloaking technology on the ranch? I think there's a good possibility. And it's also, I would just want to throw this in there. There is, in the reports that I have, there was an interview with a woman who lived off right outside Skinwalker Ranch who had exactly the same types of experiences that both Chris's had on the ranch, where you could hear heavy footsteps, where things were out of place, different things that could imply that perhaps maybe it might not be paranormal, that it could have been this cloaking technology that was being deployed. So very curious.
Yeah, it is. And obviously I can't prove anything at this point, but just from everything that I've seen, I lean towards both taking place, and that this was just a heck of a way to cover it up, create disinformation, blend it in with natural phenomenon or paranormal phenomenon that just yet hasn't been explained, and the science behind it isn't known quite yet. And maybe it is. Maybe it's known and it's just being kept from us.
And I think you're absolutely right. And I have had many conversations with Chris about this. I mean, we've had paranormal quote unquote experiences, our whole lives. I mean, we understand that there is something out there. It is worthy of study. And as I mentioned and talk about different hotspots, window areas around the world, none of these things are harming people like they are in this area of the world. And so what's going on? Is the paranormal really evil, and is this harming people? I don't necessarily think so. Having been over to Norway to see what was going on in Project Heshdalen, I mean, they're doing good scientific work. They're studying something. They don't have a bias, and they're not inserting all of these delusional and fictitious narratives in to muddy the waters like we are here.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I want to mention because you talk about the Hohokam, and I actually had the privilege 3 years ago to go down to southern Arizona, and I spent a few days out in the middle of this beautiful site where some of the world's leading researchers have gone to study the phenomenon, which is what I'd love to get back to because it's so much more positive than this stuff. But it is really, it's amazing. It's as if these indigenous cultures, they understood that there were these power centers and they wanted to protect them. And, right next to this beautiful, awe-inspiring site is a military installation.
Yeah.
It's just very, very interesting.
But Erica, isn't that crazy how it seems that these spots that have this natural power source, whatever it may be, suddenly find the United States military right next door or right underground or both. And it almost seems that where the Native American culture, Native American folklore, where the historical data that you can see that's been left by them shows these points of interest, we suddenly find the United States government very close.
I do find that rather interesting. And, you look at some of the types of sightings that are seen on the borders. It is also very curious. But I mean, I want to get back to the Uinta Basin because you went out there and you were studying some of the petroglyphs, and the McConkey Ranch is very interesting to me. Tell us a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So when you go to the glyphs at McConkey Ranch, there are, at the very far end, you actually have to walk off of the ranch and go in front of several other ranches. There's a path that's probably about a half a mile. You walk all the way to the far end of the cliffs, and then you end up back on their property. I don't know how that works, but it does. And up about 40 feet on the cliff is this incredible petroglyph. And it is huge. And it is just one of the most unique petroglyphs because you have 6 figures, and they're extremely large figures. Whoever took the time, or whoever, if it was a group of people, took the time to carve these out, it took a very long period of time. Well, as I looked at them, I noticed that one of them is out of place. And it looks to be an older glyph. Embedded in that individual looks to be the same type of number system used by the Maya and the Olmec. So I was like, well, what the heck is going on? You're talking great distance between cultures. Well, you look at the remaining glyphs, and you have somebody to that individual's left that doesn't look Native American whatsoever. The individual is wearing what looks to be more of a crown, looks to be Caucasian. Then you have 2 figures to the left that have 4 fingers on each side. They look very anthropomorphic. And then to the right, you have these 2 creatures that look like they're phasing in and out. And when I say phasing, whoever drew them to be in multiple spots on top of one another to give that illusion of phasing in and out of what I would consider space and time. And as I went around, not just at McConkey Ranch, but all, 9 Mile Canyon has thousands of glyphs, and what you see on some of them just blows your mind because you're looking at craft. You're looking at some type of it looks like lightning coming out of the craft, but could that be something being broadcast? People always go, it must be a weapon, but I think more of it transmitting something. And you look at where we're at, and we're at the 40-degree parallel line. Your 40 degrees latitude. So what I did was, after getting these just incredible petroglyphs, I started pulling back out on Google Earth, and I ended up seeing that on the same line, we're talking that there is Sardinia, Armenia, Greece, Italy, Turkey. So I went into their artifacts from the old cultures from 2,000 to 5,000 plus years ago. And guess what I found in their artifacts? Artifacts that look identical to what are in the petroglyphs here.
Wow.
With what looks to be portal usage, portals opening up, and anthropomorphic creatures, because, I obviously can't prove or give my opinion as to what I think they are. So I'll stick to anthropomorphic figures. But you have multiple species coming out, and it makes you wonder if, because of whatever the focal point and that power source is here, it's mimicked in these certain points, and there was some ability to create a portal usage along the latitude of the 40 degrees. And when I'm talking, Erica, down to the inch of where in northern Sardinia you have the giants, and they look to be red-headed giants. And guess what? You have the Cite coming out of Utah, going all the way down to Kayenta, Arizona, that we know of, and going all the way out into northern Nevada, where supposedly the Paiute eventually killed them off in Lovelock Cave. But it almost, to me, feels like I'm capable of tracking this movement of other cultures that, did they become the Native Americans or did they interbreed with the Native Americans? But there's additional petroglyphs that show Caucasians on the Uintah Basin, and they're over 1,200 years old. And then you have these cultures called Fremont and Barrier Canyon culture. Right. They don't know who the heck they are. They have no clue. They've only named the culture based upon the sites and the artifacts that were found.
I love that. We've got to talk a little bit more about that. This is so fascinating. What a great interview. I'm here with James Keenan. I'm Erica Lukes. This is UFO Classified. We're going to take our longer break, but we will be back.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.
The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico. The rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brazell was the man who discovered the saucer.
What I thought was a star began coming in my direction at a very rapid rate of speed.
The unidentified object, which some sources thought might be a blimp, moved slowly down the Pacific coast from Santa Monica and disappeared south of Long Beach.
I saw a UFO, and it went down the river, turned right at the United Nations, turned left, and then down the river.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
No more plausible deniability. Fact, fiction, or the truth. You decide. And now, the new voice of the high desert, the hostess of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the second half of UFO Classified. I'm always happy to be here every Friday night and to see familiar faces in chat who support me and know that other people aren't in chat, like Irv, my favorite artist friend on the planet and show supporter. He's amazing, but it really, this has been a long and very interesting road, and it hasn't been easy for me, especially as I've kind of made these discoveries about certain organizations and tried to shine a spotlight on some of the corruption that we're seeing in the field and the manipulation of good people who deserve the best. We all know that there's something important, something beautiful, something empowering taking place. And for whatever reason, there are private contractors or government agents that want to take that power away from us. And we simply cannot let this happen. And that is why I'm so passionate about doing my research and being here every week. And I am also very, very supportive of I appreciate each and every one of you kind of holding my hand through a really painful process that's taking place right now with the discoveries of what has potentially taken place at Skinwalker Ranch at the hands of Bigelow and some of the lies and deceit that have taken place and the damage, the long-term damage this is going to do, and potentially the damage that this will do to people I love very, very much. And like I have said, I am a very determined woman, and I will get to the bottom of it. And if there is, whether this is UAP or UFO exposure, the truth will be told. And all of the little minions and researchers that support the faction and are trying to discourage me and discredit me publicly, the truth will come out about you as well. I can guarantee that. So on that note, I am here with James Keenan, who is also going through this amazing process, but he gets to travel to the coolest places, and I'm a little jealous, I have to say. James is an author and a researcher, and seriously, James, I would like to, can I just trade places with you for 1 week? I think it'd be better for my mental, facilities at the faculties at the moment.
I don't know. That's the biggest benefit of what I do is the travel. Maybe a week.
How much fun, though. I love that. And you were just here in Salt Lake, and I'm sorry that I didn't get to see you, but hopefully next time you come back, we can hang out and share some ideas, and you can teach me some things.
Sure.
Yeah, I love it. And so you were talking about the McConkey Ranch, and this is a beautiful place. You also mentioned 9 Mile Canyon, which if anybody ever gets out here, you've got to see that. It is absolutely stunning. But you also mentioned the Fremont, and so please continue where you were going when we left off for break.
Sure. So you have these cultures, the Fremont culture and the Barrier Canyon culture, and anthropologists, archaeologists really don't know who they are. They've labeled the culture based upon sites and artifacts that were found in those sites. And now what they do is they just match up, the style and say, okay, it was Fremont or Barrier Canyon culture. They've even labeled one as other unknown, which is really interesting because they don't do that often. And for just the fact that you have so many unknown cultures walking around on the Uinta Basin, 800 to 2,000 plus years ago, has really got to make you wonder, how long has this area been full of this phenomena that we're seeing? And Eric, I wanted to bring something up too in regards to why so much more has been happening recently. And I think in that same article that you were discussing at the beginning of your show, somebody on Skinwalker Ranch said that they've seen this increased frequency in EMF and other phenomena taking place. And what we've recently seen, and I don't know if people have connected the dots yet, but you got to think about it, that in the last 2 to 4 years, we've seen magnetic north movement that we've never seen before. We have these strange auroras that we haven't seen before. The Earth's magnetosphere got punched just a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, it got punched and pushed in like never before. And NASA has no idea how to label it or how to go about investigating what happened. And everything's increasing at a faster rate. And I have this theory based upon my collection of, and I don't want to release too much of my data yet because I'm writing a non-fictional book that's going to include it. But on the Uinta Basin, people should be seeing this increase in phenomena, especially in this electromagnetic anomalies, especially in the last 2 to 4 years, because it matches what's happening to the entire planet. So there's these certain points on the planet that I believe this energy is a leakage coming from inside our planet. It's an inner core leakage, which is creating auroras. It's creating anomalous areas that have some type of power source that we are yet to understand to increase in energy productivity. There's another location. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Bruce Cornett.
Absolutely, yes. And I know that you went out and you got to spend some time with him.
Absolutely. Dr. Cornett did just an amazing amount of work in New York, in upstate New York, and found things that are very similar to what we're seeing on the basin. There was some type of anomalous power source underground that he located in. He spent several years mapping this out with a gamma magnetometer. And guess what? Right above this phenomena is another UFO alley. As a matter of fact, he captured on still frame camera what looks to be a portal opening up, and over hundreds of shots in a row. It's just a very interesting data points that he was capable of showing me. And what I found very interesting was the fact that a lot of the energy output that he was collecting, be it NT nanotesla or gamma, the spikes are very similar to what we're seeing in Utah, but at a much, much higher, more potent factor, especially with the quantum. The quantum is carrying a lot more energy. And go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I just want to say, could some of this increase in what we're seeing, what you're mentioning, could that have anything to do with things that are taking place with DARPA? Or, there's lots of stuff going on right now that we don't fully know the gravity.
Could. Yeah, like I said, I'm not aware of what that phenomena is, but maybe somebody knows how to manipulate it. People were afraid with the CERN collider, what was going to happen. Who's not to say there's not things of that nature or comparable to happening underground elsewhere, specifically and possibly on the Uinta Basin or north of it.
And how does this energy affect people? Because it's been a very interesting journey for me to watch people who've been exposed to things, whether it's military testing or whether it's being in areas that are active or different things, but they all get to this point where they kind of, not they all, but there are some that get to very interesting points in their life and their belief systems. And so you obviously being in an area with this type of activity has a consequence.
Absolutely. Well, and you got to remember that magnetic fields are strongest closer to their origin. And then it's creating this electric current flow. So you got to think that there's several types of radiation. And you and I had kind of talked earlier about what ionizing radiation does. And when you're getting to that high, on the EMF frequency, with the corresponding wavelengths becoming shorter and shorter. And you got to think about it like a jump rope. The length is always the same. But when you start flapping that up and down and you're getting that shorter wavelength going, you're getting and producing more energy. So when the quantum carries more energy and it keeps increasing and increasing, you're talking about ionized radiation like gamma rays. And that's the type of rays that when an individual closes their eyes and they see their bones through their eyes closed, and that light, like that poor individual that I think Michelle spoke about, it was her father last week.
Yeah, her grandfather, yeah.
That a light impacted him in that nature. You're talking about energy in light waves. And at that level, it's extremely detrimental to your health. Obviously causes cancers or other issues, disintegrates, interior organs at a slow rate, but usually within like a 4 to 10 year mortality time period.
And so I want to ask you a little bit about that, because I have heard from a couple people off the record that were researching this, that if something was going to happen and they were exposed to something, it would be immediate within a 24 to 48 hour period that they'd be having health effects. But you're saying that this might not be the case.
If they got a huge burst of energy, it would absolutely be instant. You'd have burning. Your skin would be burning. You would have organ failure. You might have blindness. You would have hair falling out or bits and pieces of this happening. Then you've got to think that you have a lower level of that quantum energy. But it's still ionized radiation that impacts you, and it's going to take time, but it's going to create cancers. It's going to create tumors at an accelerated rate based upon where your mortality would have been versus what it is now after the occurrence. And
so autoimmune diseases as well, I would imagine.
Absolutely. But then you've got to remember that there's also microwaves and RF, which are at that lower lower frequency, longer wavelength. And those over time can be just as detrimental, but it takes them to build up inside of the body. So you're talking about things eventually occurring like nausea, seeing things. You're hallucinating. You're having visual and audible hallucinations. You're getting sensations of vertigo, and I can just keep going down the list. So there can always be this in the middle potential for exposure is basically what I'm getting to.
And that's interesting, and I want to just throw this out there again. Bigelow specifically forbade the higher ups at his company to go on the ranch. And also I have in writing from Dr. Eric Davis the fact that the scientists were also told not to go to the property. So I wonder if that's because they knew that there was a UFO that was going to land, which they should have been studying, or whether they knew they were going to be exposed to something potentially that would have implications for their health and longevity. I want to ask you too, because you are so knowledgeable about all of this, but I've heard from different researchers in the Uinta Basin that they have been in locations and their compass would do a 360 spin. What would that indicate?
Well, that would be an electromagnetic anomaly. Again, remember how I said magnetic north is moving so quickly and we don't know how. You're coming upon another electromagnetic anomaly that is causing the inability to pick up, the correct direction. And I have yet to come upon that. I've come upon massive gamma increases. I'm talking about 10 to 20,000 gamma over, what the magnetosphere is for the Earth.
Wow.
And it moves. And like I said, I posit that this is just going to continue to increase. And my theory gets a little more detailed, and I would need several hours of your time, to explain it. And I don't necessarily want to tell everybody exactly what I have. I want to keep it for my book.
Right. Absolutely. And so, and I wanted to just say this too, because, you care about the Uinta Basin, and there's some interesting things that are taking place, as we know, but I've interviewed Junior Hicks twice, and he specifically mentions that he was told by people that worked for Bigelow, specific scientists, that if he were in the area and he saw his compass spin 360 degrees, that he was to get out of the area immediately, and that a portal was going to open up and he might never be seen again. So, I mean, what do you think that would mean?
I hate to say it on the radio, but I'm a firm believer in portals. And I believe that with the proper amount of energy, and I've been working on potential, I don't want to say experiment because it's not even near that point, but an ability to put together current electricity, and not static electricity, but a current electricity and sound wave frequency that I believe is capable of disrupting, interfering, and piggybacking on to whatever this power source is. And when it activates or is full, or however it is that it pushes out its energy, that things happen. And it I guess you can consider it like when the heart pulsates, and it's sending out that energy, and it's sending it outward. And that there is a good possibility to manipulate it. It just requires, a tweaking of the electricity, and it needs to interfere with it. But I absolutely believe that what he told people is absolutely possible. And I believe it's more so than just strictly on the ranch. I believe that the area is as strong, maybe even stronger, a focal point, a specific location on the Ute Reservation, just several miles north of the ranch.
And so you mentioned, tweaking energy, electricity. What would that mean? When you look at the Skinwalker Ranch, there are several power lines that run through it that have always been, people have kind of questioned what was taking place with that. Could that be manipulated somehow? It could.
So remember it. So if the source is in the ground, you're going to have, let's say there's something transmitting that's cloaked above the basin, and it's transmitting a signal out to space. And I'm giving this example because there's a petroglyph that shows this happening. But so let's say the power source is in the ground below the ridge, just above the ranch, and we'll call that point A. And the source in the sky is point B. So point A and point B, if it's acting on an AC current, based upon its movement, current can go in either direction. Let's say now we get something that has potential to capture or have energy, in this point electricity travel through it. So we're talking about metals, or what's in the poles, the electric poles, not electric, but metal fences. Suddenly you've made this point A, B, and C. So when this energy pulsates and goes up as it's attempting to go to what was B in the sky and is now C, you should see these poles with such potential buildup of energy that they're shaking. They should be making noises. It should scare you from the amount of energy that's building up in these, that it should be shaking at a level that if you took your hand in front of your eyes and moved your hand back and forth, you know how you have that ghost hand? It should be about the same, because it's a buildup of this energy, and there should be audible. You should be able to hear the buildup of the energy until it transfers elsewhere.
And it is so interesting because Michelle, who was on last week, talked about her grandfather's experiences and talked about the energy, the power lines. And I've heard this time and time again. And there's also an interesting letter that was actually posted in the Bass headquarters on the ranch, where they are specifically saying that there was a representative from an electrical consultant firm that wanted to come in and look at creating right-of-way corridors for electrical transmission lines and pipelines for the water. And Bigelow specifically stepped in to issue denial of the request to this organization. So, I mean, very clearly there might be something there that somebody didn't want to be altered or messed with. And those power lines are very, very curious. Would there be any other place that you could think of that would potentially be that you could utilize to transmit or open a portal or manipulate the environment?
Elsewhere in the world?
Elsewhere in the world, on the ranch. What would make what is the perfect storm for this?
You know, it all depends on the power source. There are places on the planet that put out quite a bit of power that we're just not, we don't quite understand it. But in regards to something known, I would have to say there on the Uinta Basin is just the most known location. That's why, in my quest for trying to document portals in the past and current, I was really turned on by what I saw in the historical data, and then to suddenly just come upon the fact that, the ranch and the reservation happened to be within anywhere from 15 to 40 miles. It was just an amazing, I don't even want to call it coincidence, because there's just no way it was coincidence at this point. There's just too many pieces of the puzzle that are fitting into place.
And it's also fascinating, and we've got to take a break, and I need to have you back. I'm going to be picking your brain for years to come, so prepare yourself.
Sure.
I am Erica Lukes here with UFO Classified. I am with James Keenan. You can find his books on Amazon, The UFO and the Alien, Shoplifting in a Paranormal Zone, and I will be following his work. I know you will as well. We will be right back.
Stand by.
This is UFO Classified with Erica Lukes.
Erica Lukes.
The phone lines are open now at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio. More UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
With Erica Lukes on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. After this.
Immerse yourself in an epic journey through time, where ancient mysteries unfold within a story of love and betrayal, as well as a battle of good versus evil in The Emissary Book 1. The reader's favorite Gold Medal Award winner for Visionary Fiction 2019, the action and adventure of The Emissary continues in The Emerald Tablet, Book 2. The 2019's Bronze Medal Award winner, The Emissary and The Emerald Tablet by Tamara Veach and Rennie DeFazio are both available now on Amazon.com. Let your reading adventure begin.
Vegas, baby! Vegas' #1 source for talk and new music.
How cool is that?
This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and text us,
if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music.
This is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
There is a world outside that which we live in, a realm where fact and fiction collide. The Paradigm Matrix. The Paradigm Matrix. Hosted by Willie Miranda. Every Friday night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us, even now in this very room.
The 1-hour show that will surely leave you hanging on the edge of the rabbit hole. The Paradigm Matrix explores a universe of topics from UFOs, cryptozoology, conspiracies, as well as all things paranormal.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed.
Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Paradigm Matrix. Exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network, where fact and fiction collide.
Alien Deceptions, a suspenseful sci-fi romance thriller by Tina Marie, featuring the tantalizing Erica Jones and the mysterious Russell Hamilton. An out-of-this-world book of fiction based on years of document facts and files the government does not want you to know about. At least, not yet. Alien Deceptions by Tina Marie. Available now at Amazon.com or get a signed copy at TinaMarieEntertainment.com. Get your copy now.
1, 2, 3, 4!
You are listening
to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
I love the way it sounds. Love the music. Oh, I listen to.
The future of radio is here and now.
You're listening to UFO Classified with Erica Lukes, where the truth isn't hidden beneath the black lines of a Sharpie.
That's the craziest thing I've ever heard.
To be on with Erica, call 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
Radio contact.
Share your thoughts on the show on Twitter by using hashtag KCOR. Or head over to the live chats at KCORradio.com.
The audience goes nuts!
And now, your host of UFO Classified.
Are you ready?
Erica Lukes. Erica Lukes.
Welcome back to the last half of UFO Classified, or the last section. I am always happy to be here. This show is always evolving and changing, and I appreciate you supporting me and watching me grow and go through all of these learning pains. We're all in this together, and I will definitely say when I started out in a public sense a few years ago, I never would have expected I would have encountered what I have, but I have. And it is my commitment to each and every one of you that I will make sure I do the right thing by exposing corruption in the field, the manipulation of our belief systems, and hopefully try to get to the truth of the matter. It is a muddy and gray area, as we are seeing Skinwalker Ranch and Bigelow and all sorts of things. That is a prime example of how, unfortunately, this community has been manipulated. But we will keep exposing that. I am here now with James Keenan, who is an author who has done a lot of great research, and I wish I could just tag along. I might just, I don't know, hide myself in your suitcase and then come on a research project with you, because you get to do like cool things. And I love going out there and doing field research. And I was mentioning before, it's like, you get so bogged down in some of this other nonsense that's thrown in there purposefully and with not the best interest for all of us at heart. But there is something genuine, and there is something that deserves to be respected and studied. And it should be empowering to each of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's just so much of a story to tell. Sometimes you realize if you only focus in on one or two people, that you're not going to ever hear and see everything that's possible and potential, especially from the location that we're talking about. That I personally wish more people would come together and be willing to share and work together. And the individuals that I've been in contact with have just been a wealth of knowledge and information, and it's reciprocal. I make sure I give them, that it's in both directions. And, just the opportunity. I've texted with the owner of the ranch, the current owner, and I always tell people that I don't necessarily have to be on the ranch, that a lot of my work takes place on the whole basin. But there are a couple locations. One happens to be on the ranch that I would love to get data points from, just due to the fact that I know what's occurred at this spot. And I can almost guarantee that I'm going to come out with amazing data that would allow me to help track and position better where I believe the focal point is, and kind of help push the story further into regards as to what's happening. And to kind of, you and I know the waters have been so muddied in the last 6 months, and it kind of takes away from the focus of what that potential for the true anomalies are versus what's been man-made and what they were trying to accomplish with that. But I think that the opportunity for everybody to come together and to share more information and hopefully get us to remove that paranormal tag and put it into, hey, we can label it as we're aware and we know what's happening, and it's scientific data, at some point, hopefully in my lifetime.
Right. And, you mentioned working together, and I think that I would love nothing more than that. And I know, for Chris and myself, Chris has so much knowledge, and he has lived out there. He has camped out there with no sleeping bags. He has communed with nature, knows every square inch of that ranch. And so maybe at some point the new ownership would actually have him come on and talk about some of the areas that he's discovered that he hasn't made public again. So there is this we should all be working together to try to figure this out. And I really am hopeful that maybe will happen sometime soon, and you can go on there as well. But then we've always got, in the back of our mind, okay, what, if we go there, are we, I know, I will tell you, I've been, a couple of years ago, I went out there to interview Junior Hicks. Maybe it might have been, oh my gosh, I'll have to look back. But I had, we had a really interesting thing that took place over a 2-hour period that we recorded. We have photographs. This was right above the ranch. It was during a lightning storm. It was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And it was very intense. And so it would be really interesting to get all of us together to share our ideas, which is how you learn and you break ground, and then also maybe utilize some of the great resources like Erling Strand, who has done an amazing job over in Norway and with European researchers in actually studying the phenomenon, some of these things, and we can get a dialogue going and maybe take a field trip. Who knows what will happen?
Absolutely. I'm always willing to go.
And how are you going to protect yourself? What sort of suit are you getting? Because I clearly need to get one too.
And my wife gets upset with me all the time because I'm a loner. I prefer to be out in the field by myself. And when I see something happening, I hope I don't ever earn one of the Darwin Awards, because I'm the first one to start running towards it. And I'm fascinated. I've had a history of paranormal, and when I mix my paranormal beliefs with I may not be a super religious individual now, but my religious beliefs that, my parents had me grow up on, and then based upon the science that I have, having that background now in anthropology and archaeology, that, so many things are possible, and it's just a matter of getting the right scientists to keep an open mind. And just kind of change that paranormal label to unknown. For now, it's a temporary unknown, nothing else. And that the possibilities of changing it to a scientific tag within, the next several years suddenly seems pretty darn good. That opportunity seems to be there, especially with on the ranch with the new ownership. just the fact that what I saw from the paper that recently came out, kudos to them heading in the direction that it pushed up my timeline for sure on when I wanted to announce my work. And, I obviously said I want to share with everyone and all that. And there's always that right time and place for it to happen.
Absolutely. And we will, I look forward to seeing what will happen, with regard to that. And you mentioned your lifetime full of paranormal experiences. And I think, you're not here unless you've had some sort of experience or experiences that have led you into all of this. What was your very first paranormal experience?
I had an NDE. I drowned when I was young, and I was gone for about 10 minutes before they were able to resuscitate me. And it happened so young. I was a year and a half old, and the fact that I'm capable of remembering like an adult from the moment I I fell into the water and what took place after and then afterwards. I mean, I even remember the ER doctor telling my parents that I was pretty much going to be a vegetable. And, to remember so much as if I were an adult at that age is just, it opened up, the potential and the possibilities in this world to me. And then obviously I've had some run-ins with what I would, consider a shadow person or a shadow figure and portals. And that's why I'm fascinated with portals. I understand the electromagnetic potential that's necessary for if they can and will form the need for that energy to exist, and that there's other things that need to happen, especially with the light spectrum and the sound wave frequency for things like that. But I mean, that's where my start came from. So I always have had an open mind. I just wanted to put the science background with it. I have
Right.
a law enforcement background included in there, 25 years of having been a private investigator in law enforcement. Saw a couple weird and strange things on duty that, would take another hour to go through with you.
Well, I told you I'm going to have you back because this is just getting good. But do you think that people are, we hear the word antenna. Do you think that people are antennas, or is it just is the phenomenon area specific?
You know what? I think it's both. I think if you put somebody that is that antenna into that area specific, things happen. And I wish we could have more of that occur. And I think that to add on top of that, you have to have an open mind, especially when you're talking about the Uinta Basin. If you don't believe in Native American tradition and what they're telling, and you think it's just a bunch of hogwash, you might as well not go there or really be a part of anything, because so much of what's taking place is based in what they already know. And events that take place, you can trace right back to them, to their ancestors, and to whoever their ancestors may be.
And I think it's so beautiful. And we get so focused. We're always behind a computer or a cell phone, and we never get out, and we don't listen to nature, and we don't trust our intuition, and we don't respect what people who have been living out there and taking signs from nature. We don't respect what they have learned. And I think it's a really beautiful thing to do, to actually be able to do that. Maybe next time when you come to Utah, we can plan a little trip to my new favorite location up in the Uinta Basin. That is an incredibly powerful place, and it is also not corrupt as the Skinwalker Ranch. It's pure now.
Oh yeah, and what's interesting, we talk about government entities being there, but there's some strange past government entities that had things that don't make sense out there already. Specifically NASA, they had a site 16 miles away from the ranch that absolutely makes no sense when I have done background on it, the research. There's just so many things, and for that to have been occurring 40 years ago, maybe a little more, makes you wonder what they were watching or what they were trying to record and get data and research on under this disguise of it being, a portable observatory.
And so, I mean, can you, and I know this is news to me, so this is absolutely fascinating. So it was 16 miles away. What other information do you have about that? That's fascinating.
I have to take you both to it.
Okay.
It's amazing, the data points that I collected there on EMF. And when you look at the blueprints for what this was supposed to be, it was supposed to be powered by overhead power lines, yet they're nowhere to be found. So what was truly going on there, I have no idea. I hit the ground with ground penetrating radar, and there's anomalous cavities under a huge cement square that's out there. And in the lecture that I give, I get into great detail about this and the symbols that are there, and it's intense, it's crazy.
Wow, that is really, really cool. What other government entities have been out there? What else were you able to glean?
Well, I told you when I think I went into it a little bit a couple of weeks ago when we were talking that, when you go to the History Center in Vernal or to the libraries, they know absolutely nothing. And the two ladies that I met at the Historical Center, those ladies knew absolutely everything. So for them not to know about, an entity like NASA being out there was very interesting. And what they did do, though, was she pulled out a file thinking that that's what I was talking about. And I believe it was in the year 1963 that there were possible tests going on, nuclear testing, atomic testing going out there. And I blew it off, and I should have actually taken that information and followed up more on it. And it's on my to-do list when I'm back up there. But it makes you wonder what else is happening underground if they're building these locations for test facilities. Could there be something closer to the focal point of the ranch or the neighboring ranches that had prior government testing going on? And it doesn't necessarily have to be nuclear. As you and I know, there's other types of things that have been coming out recently, non-lethal weapons, things
right.
of that nature.
And you're mentioning that. I mean, first of all, my mind is blown. So thank you very much that you've uncovered some things that are incredibly important, and I will help you any way I can to look into that. It is when we went out to interview Junior Hicks, and he showed me a picture of the infamous rods that were found by Sherman on the property, and these, the fuel rods. We took a picture of them, but they were so concerned about it that they put several people on the ground on their hands and knees to dig through the property to pick up these rods and then take them away. And of course, Bigelow took them away, and the scientists, quote unquote scientists, told him that they were, just there was a mundane explanation, but it's very curious. And so I'll have to send you that photo, and you could look at that and see. I mean, I think they're definitely, with what you're saying and what am uncovering, I mean, I think there is a potential that there has been testing going on in that area for quite some time.
Oh, yeah. And I just want to give kudos where kudos is due. On that NASA site, Ryan Skinner, he's just this wealth of information. when I was out there, he let me know about it because he figured with all the tools that I had, I'd be able to pull more out of the ground, I guess you could say. So that information, I'm giving him, full credit on letting me know about that. And then in regards to what you were talking about, if you're talking about these EMF frequencies and all that, it's not a good idea to be digging into the ground. At great depths, you should really be watching and taking a lot of steps to protect yourself before you dig, especially at known locations, where they're pulling out rods or things are shaking at anomalous speeds. You really need to take the time out to look into the ground, maybe get that ground penetrating radar out and see, what the potential is for hazards below you before you start doing that.
Absolutely, and I think that's you've certainly shown a light on some of these things that I think are really truly happening, and I can't thank you enough. I mean, I thank you for doing what you've done. Thank you for taking the time to visit Dr. Smith or to attempt to visit him and uncover a really strange thing about him and his location. But this is all so curious, and I would love to work with you and to try to unravel some of these things. And yes, Skinner has been great and relentless at documenting some of these things, and then finding and giving bits of information, to both of us, which I appreciate. He's done that in a very, I believe, selfless manner, and he's also gotten a lot of flack, unfortunately, from some people with probably maybe don't have need to get counseling for their small egos and things over the years, but he has in his way done a really great job, and he does deserve kudos for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, he's a wealth of information, and I try not to ever get into the name calling or anything like that, because like I said, my end game is to figure out and find out what's happening before I die.
You know what? And I'm right there with you. And like I said, I will do anything I can to help you. And I look forward. You need to come back to Salt Lake. We need to go hang out. We need to go on a road trip. And even though you like to do your research, by yourself, I might be, hiding 100 feet behind you and trying to do my super sleuth, watching and learning from what you're doing. But it's just amazing. I love it. And so where are you going to be speaking next? What is the next big thing that we can look for with regard to what you're doing?
Sure. So March 17th, I'm going to be at UPARS in Los Angeles. March 18th, I will be at MUFON Orange County. And March the 20th, I will be at MUFON in Sedona, Arizona. I will also be, I'm not going to be speaking, but I will be at the Mega UFO Conference in Laughlin next month. It's kind of interesting because they're going to have a big thing on Skinwalker Ranch, and I believe Thomas Winterton and Ryan will be there, and several of the current guards. So it should be very good opportunity to be able to get out there and share information with them. And also my good friend, Dr. Cornett, will be there speaking.
Oh, that's give him a hug for me, and absolutely. When you go to MUFON Orange County, definitely ask them, because I think there's some interesting connections with MUFON Bigelow, Skinwalker Ranch, so that might be interesting to ask them about that, and hopefully you can learn some more and get back to me. It's just all curious. I hope our paths cross sooner than later, and this has been really a fun interview. Thank you for again, reinstilling my passion and actually wanting to get out there and study something other than the gloom and doom of humanity and some of the negativity, because there is something real and genuine, and now we just have to weed through all the other stuff and figure it out.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's definitely anomalies taking place there, and some are paranormal and others are not. And it's all, part of the end game of sorting that out.
I love it. And so are you writing, so you've got this new book, when do you have any time frame as to when that's going to come out?
I'm hoping it'll be out sometime in September.
Okay. So I will definitely have you on before then, even though that just September seems like it should be a million years away and it's already the end of January, but we'll see what happens. But thank you so much for being here and giving us insight. And I am fired up now to even do more research, and we'll work together to do that. I'll help you any way I can. I want to thank all of my listeners for being here and supporting the show, and all of the people that contribute to make the show happen every month. I love you guys. I am here for all of you. I want to thank Robert Fleischer for interviewing Chris Marks, his interview about Skinwalker Ranch and what the questions he has about what took place during the Bass Days that is making the wave in Germany and Austria, all over Europe. This is catching fire, and we will make sure that at the end of the day, people who are potentially harming people without their consent are held accountable for this. I want to thank Keith Basterfield in Australia for his relentless research and promoting the truth in a very unbiased way. Also, John Greenwald, who I hold in high regard, who has taken a lot of criticism from some of the true believers who don't want to actually look at the facts and look at things and ask questions. But anyway, there's a lot going on. Make sure you guys all do your due diligence. Don't believe in the narrative that has been put before you, because clearly, as we've seen with Skinwalker Ranch, as we've seen with Area 51, Bob Lazar, all of these things, they've been manipulated, and there is a background to this. So do your due diligence. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. I will catch you next week, and trust me, it will be a good show. Have a great night. Stick around for Willie Miranda.
Listen very carefully.
This is Houston. Say again, please. Houston, we've had a problem.
This is UFO Classified, live every Friday night, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The truth is out there, just waiting to be discovered.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
For more information on the host of UFO Classified, Erica Lukes, upcoming guests, as well as links to the past shows,
visit her website at ufoclassified.com.
UFO Classified.
UFO Classified.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a